As Sheila said, the recording has started, and we're going to look at several collaborative activities that are underway. And Beth, I know I've seen you on the call, and I would just ask if you could speak to social prescribing.
I would love to. I think we have some exciting updates to share. There's a lot going on in the works right now. So I will try and be brief, but I wanted to share with everyone that there's been a lot of work over the recent months with the Home Care Path Forward Steering Committee. I think we had mentioned before that Home Care kind of picked up the idea of social prescribing as part of their redesign work. And so there's been a working group that's been established between members of A.P.S, Alberta Health, and then also the social prescribing group that was that emerged through the SRT work and ESCC. And so we've been meeting with them to kind of set the stage and build out the processes for what social prescribing might look like with home care case managers. So that's very exciting. We'll hopefully have more news in the new year about what that might actually looks like. We have a few more meetings scheduled from now until till the holiday period. And then hopefully in the new year, we'll actually have some confirmation of funding and be able to move forward with whatever that might look like. The other piece of news is that we submitted a proposal to the Intersectoral Action Fund over the summer through the Public Health Agency of Canada. We're expecting to hear from that hopefully in the next few weeks. So they had let us know that it would be in November. So hoping by the end of November, we'll have word as to whether or not that we received that. The other update, we did have an opportunity to submit our prospectus to another potential funder as well. So that's exciting. And then the other things that have been in the works, there's a group of Masters of Public Health students that have been working on a capstone project with Mary Modillo from A.P.S. And so they've been building asset maps for social prescribing. They've also been building a little bit of a framework. So that project's mostly looking at social prescribing from a PCN perspective and how we can build on work that already exists in the sector to really build out a framework that could be potentially put into use, whether or not we get a green light funding from someone who's willing to kind of move forward with that piece of work. And think that is everything for social prescribing, unless I've missed anything. Sheila or anyone else, if I've missed anything on the social prescribing front, please let me know.
I think you did a great job. I just note that Dr. Lewanchuk is in the call, and he had kind of some exciting news. I don't know if he wants to give a little bit of an update about the research, the trajectory predicting.
Sure. Yeah, so this is, it's tied to social prescribing potentially, but a colleague in Alberta Health who is an absolute genius with data has been, and some of us on this call have actually worked with him before, but he's looking at the ability to predict who might end up in long-term care or institutionalized care amongst the elderly. Of course, definition of the elderly is 45 plus in his world. But because he has access to all of the data, we've done some work and come up with some sort of formula, some very complex formulas that require all this fancy machine learning and artificial intelligence and whatnot. But the utility, there's a bunch of benefits for this. So the first one is that it helps particularly identify those who might most benefit from community interventions. i.e. the social prescribing in order to prevent the need for institutionalization or obviate that need. So it's useful from the system perspective, but it's also useful for the person who, as we know from all the surveys, does not want to go into long-term care. Might be helpful for the family as well, linked to that. But then the other part of it is that if we do start, or once we do start down the route of the social prescribing, we would also be able to look at the impact, have we had an impact on institutionalization rates? The good news is because this links between Alberta Health Services and clinical care. It's not really a research study, but it comes under the auspices more quality improvement, if you like that. Where I'm going with this is that you don't need funding for it, and you don't need to have formal ethics approval. We're looking to see, we're using data that we already have. We're just putting it together and merging it together to enable us to be able to identify those who might benefit the most, and then to see if what we're doing is actually doing what we want it to do. And so rather than going through the lengthy, all sorts of, applications here, there, and whatever, and finding money and waiting 3 months, it's, okay, here's the answer tomorrow type of situation. So there would have to be some, probably between the primary care networks or whichever route, some data sharing agreements, but those are fairly straightforward. So I think that really helps, that would really have the potential to help us.
Thanks. Dr. Lewanchuk. Beth, I noticed there was a question in the chat. If you could explain what asset map is.
Yeah, so I think at its core, asset mapping is about kind of looking at what resources exist in the community and mapping them to different domains that are identified. So the student project has done a preliminary asset map of community resources and kind of mapped them to different domains of wellness. So environmental, spiritual, those types of things. And there's 2 more actually things I forgot to mention. So Mary asked me to share that the students will be presenting their work on November, let me find the date, November 29th at 3 p.m. So if anyone is interested in listening to that presentation from that group of public health students, feel free to send Mary a note or me a note, and we can forward you that invitation. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention is that there's also work building across Canada. There's now a social prescribing community of practice that's been convened. So there's folks from Ontario, from BC, and then mainly Alberta that have joined that community of practice. And it's just an opportunity for us to share information about the work that we're doing. I think what we're seeing is that there's a lot of work that's going on that maybe isn't called social prescribing, but really follows those same principles. And so if we're able to kind of come together as this community of practice nationally, there might be some more buzz that's generated about social prescribing. That's kind of what happened in the UK. And in the UK nationally now, social prescribing is just kind of the gold standard for what's being done across the country. So if we're able to build that community of practice out, I think there could be some exciting kind of investments in this space. And if you're interested in learning more about that, I can forward you the information from the group that's leading that community of practice.
Thanks, Beth. That's all very exciting. And I think we can see it. We might have thought of this originally as a project, but it seems like a movement, like there's pots boiling and connections being made, not only in the city, in the province, across the country. So very exciting work. I think next, Carolyn, you were going to share with us some information about the age-friendly work.
Yeah, I will. Thanks, Anne. I guess it's that time of year for Age Friendly, and our hubs have been busy meeting and formalizing our plans for 2022. So I just want to highlight just a few things. Our Ageism Hub continues to work on initiatives to bring awareness of ageism and the harms of negative attitudes. toward older people. And this past year, we actually created an infographic. I don't know if you remember that, but it's a tool that has helped us to bring awareness to what ageism is and the myths around growing older. You may have seen it on our social media feeds and on our Grow Older With Me website. And what we hope to do is to publish the infographic in more publications and maybe other mediums to reach a larger audience in 2022. Also, Dr. Kwansi, one of our change makers, wrote an article on behalf of AFE called "What's the Matter with Ageism?" The article was published in the Alberta Retired Teachers Association magazine. I think it reached over, I think about 25,000 households over Alberta and BC. And again, we're looking for alternative ways to publish the article and to have it reach more people, and maybe even translate it into different languages to reach a larger audience. The Aging in Place Hub has also been meeting and really focusing on housing options and alternatives for older adults. And our most recent Lunch and Learn back in October, we invited older adults to talk about their lived experience of either downsizing or having to move to alternative housing because of different reasons, such as failing health. All of our Lunch and Learns actually live on ESCC's Facebook page. And if you want to give a listen, I can put the link in the chat box. What else can I update you on? Yeah, I'm also a member of CORE, Alberta's age-friendly, Alberta age-friendly communities of practice. And our group is part of a collaborative series hosted by core groups. The series showcases each group's unique perspectives in the area of frailty with different sessions that you can choose from. So the next one, I think we missed the one in November. I can't remember what topic it was on, but the next one is on frailty and falls, prevention and functional mobility. And I think that's on December 7th. Now, the age-friendly communities of practice session, we're not until February, and we'll examine social isolation as a risk factor for frailty. And we'll have speakers from examples from communities right across Alberta that will help prevent and address frailty by addressing social isolation under two of the age-friendly domains of social participation and respect and social inclusion. And I'll put the link in the chat as well, and you can look at all the sessions, and they're all free, and they're all about an hour long, and over the next few months. Couple of other things. The Ageism Hub is also planning a virtual storytelling time focused around stories of the holiday season. Planning that for mid-December. We don't have an exact title. We're still kind of working on that, finalizing all the details. Dorothy is on the call today, and she's been working really hard on this, and all of our input from all of our hub members, such as Mary and Michael and so forth. And so it will be advertised in our link letter in early December, and look for it on our social media channels. I think that's about it. Oh, no, one more thing. We have some ESCC AFE swag giveaways if you're interested. You know what, I'm just going to share a photo of the swag. I think I've talked to some of you about it. Oh, there it is. Okay, there we go. We have swag, age-friendly swag. So if you're interested in receiving some of these items, not all the items are in these boxes, but they're great giveaways. We have age-friendly reusable bags. Those little blue and yellow men are very popular. You can prop your phone on it, hot and cold pack, the little blue things, and just some informational handouts. We have broadsheet on social isolation, age-friendly notepads. So if you're interested in receiving a box of these goodies, just let me know. You can email me at caroline@seniorscouncil.net. So that is my update.
Great, thank you. I moved a little too quickly. I think Mary Whale had put up a golden hand and it was just flashing before me as we had moved to Caroline. So I'm apologize, Mary. Did you have a question related to social prescription and I moved a bit too quickly to the next item?
Oh, that's okay. I probably was slow in putting my hand up, but it was just a question for Dr. Lewanchuk. I was just wanting to sort of rephrase or make sure I understood. So it sounds like to me that you're talking about rejigging existing data to create justification for social prescribing. Is that kind of it? Or am I not understanding that?
Sort of. So the way it would work was that if we're doing this through the primary care networks, so Oliver and South in particular, the people that would be socially prescribed to, or the candidates for such, they would submit, the PCN would submit a list of healthcare numbers, and then in return we can provide back, or what can be provided back is a risk of a 1 or 2 year risk, actually, of ending up in long-term care. So basically, this person is at high risk of ending up in long-term care, and sort of the fill in the blank part is unless we intervene now. So some of it may be preventable, some may, maybe not. So it's a balance of clinical decision making and such. But it helps identify. It would help identify, who's most in need, who would benefit the most potentially. But then also, sort of after the fact, we can do what we're doing with the social prescribing, and a year or 2 years later look back and say, did it have an impact? Because we can look at the predicted versus the observed probability of having ended up in long-term care. Because the primary care networks are 50% in partnership with Alberta Health Services, it means that there's no barriers to that flow of data, or at least not very.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay, I get it. All right. Thanks so much.
Great. Thanks very much. So as Kran was speaking again, we can see how dynamic things are both in the city and across the province. And I think, Rosalie, you're next, and you are going to provide us with some information about the senior home support.
Okay, hello, I'm Rosalie. I help facilitate a collaborative called the Seniors Home Support Program. And we're funded by the City of Edmonton FCSS, and it is been in operation now for 5 years. So we've been able to gather a fair bit of data and have worked with over 7,000 seniors in that time. They're given referrals for home support services and all the providers are screened. So there's and then they in turn will follow up and call these businesses and individuals and enter into a contract or not with them. And it's the scope of that program is from home maintenance and home repairs, snow removal, lawn maintenance, moving, some personal services, and I think I'm missing one, but so we had an opportunity this summer to dig a little deeper into the data. So even though there's a very high satisfaction rate, we have contracted with both a database provider and an evaluation and a consultant. So we are we have noticed that there's a certain subset that is given referrals but do not follow up on them. So that was the subset that we wanted to dig deeper. So we had interviews this summer with about 24 of them, and we had assumed that financial barriers would have been one of the reasons, but we found that in addition to the financial barriers, there was also a themes that emerged was that some of these individuals needed more assistance with navigation and system navigation. And so we are in turn now so they might not have some natural supports. They might not have children, adult children, or friends and family to help them advocate. So they're needing a bit more support. We're now tweaking and looking at, do we tweak the program some? And one of the ways we're looking at that is can we use community members? Can we use more volunteers in the provision of some of these services? As you can imagine, snow removal is an obvious one where you look to your neighbor and people in your community, but how can these senior centers, the program is delivered at 6 senior centers throughout the city. How can maybe these senior centers also have volunteers come on board and look outside? They have volunteers within their 4 walls, but how about looking into the community, serving people maybe in their homes? To that end, we have Volunteer Alberta that will help us kind of explore that conversation. We're having a webinar on developing policy and managing risk in that area on Tuesday, 10:30 to noon on the 30th of November. So I guess this is an example too of how you can use data and you developmental evaluation and try to tweak things as you go until you're more responsive to the seniors that you serve.
Thanks, Rosalie. I'm just now taking the 10-second pause to make sure there's no questions before we move forward. And
Mary has a question.
Oh, good. See, I can't see Mary.
Well, it wasn't really a question, Rosalie. Are you aware of, it just reminded me of Wendy Duggleby's project called M.A.P.S, where she actually trains volunteers in the community to be links or navigators of the system. And it's
I've heard her speak, yes. And so we have yet to explore that area. So the seniors that do need that more help with navigation, how do we meet that? So that will be explored in the upcoming season or year.
Sure, I was just an FYI.
Thank you. But that's a good little prod. And if anybody in this room wants more information about that webinar, I will put the registration link in the chat box.
So of the 3 information sharing we've heard, the dynamic nature of all this activity and how it's not static is definitely being demonstrated. And I think that will be the case, Karen, as you tell us about the Healthy Aging Alberta.
Morning, everybody. So I'm pleased to share some good news that we've received confirmation of the renewal of a second round of funding to support this important work provincially from our colleagues in the Ministry of Seniors and Housing. So big thanks to, I think Jody's on the line and others within the ministry for their advocacy to support this important work. We're very, very grateful for that. So that'll allow us to continue the development of things like the Constellation of Networks approach, which is really supporting good work that's happening regionally, but trying to tie that regional work into more provincial infrastructure so that we're aware of what our colleagues are doing across the province and how we can work together more closely. So with that Constellation of Networks approach, community developers are being hired now. They're going to start with Edmonton and Calgary because there's already obviously some good momentum in place in those 2 centers. And then in the spring, looking towards 3 additional community developers hired for rural and remote communities across the province. So that interview process and recruitment process is underway. And hopefully you'll meet that person soon. I wanted to say a big thank you to those of you that took the time to complete a survey that was recently shared through Healthy Aging Alberta. Notice the new branding. We're all getting used to using that new language. The survey was really about trying to understand where community-based senior serving organizations are at in terms of their capacities and the challenges and opportunities that exist right now in the sector. Really trying to ascertain where organizations are at both at this moment, but also looking ahead into the new year. so that as we begin to do our work around sector development and potentially working with our colleagues in other systems like health, around things like social prescribing or responding to opportunities as they emerge around things like the work around home care path forward, we need to really understand where organizations are at, what is the capacity of organizations to respond to those opportunities. And if we don't have a sense of that, I think we're really flying blind. And so I really appreciate the time people took. I think the last I heard, Sheila, we were at 85 responses, which is not bad. It was a pretty lengthy survey. Hopefully we'll get to 100. That was our goal.
I think we're at 95. And Karen, you may not know this, but Miriam is going to give us a little presentation after in a few minutes.
Perfect. So that's excellent news. So thank you to everybody who took the time to do that. For those of you who attended the recent event on serving seniors during the pandemic, I hope it was useful and informative. I know I found it to be so on CORE Alberta website. If you didn't make it though, there is a recording available. So if you're a CORE member, if you're not, I hope you will be soon. But there is a recording there. There was some good information shared at that event. Also the collaborative series that's underway around frailty and fall prevention. There's another event coming up on December 7th on nutrition, physical activity, and functional mobility. So maybe have a look at that, share it with your teams. Our colleague Anne is doing good work on the advancement of the healthy aging framework and ensuring that we have that very helpful tool available to community-based organizations across the province to support the work that we do. So I'm hopeful that we'll have the opportunity to share that out soon. Lots of work going into that. Just a reminder, on CORE, there is information always available there about funding opportunities, things that you might not come across in your own travels. People are procuring those opportunities as well as research that's relevant to the work that we do in community. So those are some things I wanted to highlight. I don't know, Jody or Sheila or others, were there any things that you wanted to flag that maybe I didn't get to? There's so much work underway.
I might just add,
Oh, sorry, you go.
I was just going to add, when Karen talked about the regional community developers being hired, so Edmonton zone is the Alberta Health Services zone. So it goes as far west as Stony Plain up to Morinville in the north, Camrose in the east, Devon, Leduc in the south. So when the person is hired, we're doing the interviewing now, they will be trying to make connections in those communities and helping to really advance the work that is happening in those communities and trying to see where there's alignment in the provincial scale. So I just wanted to kind of explain, it's not just Edmonton, it's like the whole surrounding area.
And Jody?
Remembered to turn on my video, but not my mic. I was just going to add to Karen's presentation to watch for the CORE newsletter. I think it's coming out tomorrow, and it'll have links to New Horizons funding call is open now. That's federal funding. And then there's also some funding available through the Ministry of Health to support palliative care services. So there might be some funding there if you're working with caregivers, et cetera. So just a flag to watch for those.
And I can see, Jody, you put it in someone's put it in the chat. So if you're looking for that link, you will see it immediately. Any other questions or comments? We have one more network in action initiative that we wanted to look at, and that would be Marlene from M.A.P.S Alberta.
Okay, so I'm the data analyst and a community researcher at M.A.P.S Alberta. And for those of you that are familiar with M.A.P.S, we do a lot of mapping of services and demographics. And then we also do some other research. For example, with the immigrant group, we did some research on skill transfer from some data from the local agencies. So we're in process of trying to get into the research data center, the Federal Research Data Center. It's located at the University of Alberta. And we're working with Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada and Stats Canada, who are supporting us in getting access to some of this data. The Research Data Center is typically used only by academic researchers. And so this is a relatively new venture, and we're just going through the application process. And Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada have agreed that they will let us use some of their iCare data as well. So we're really excited to be able to access disaggregated data, because typically in the past, we get tables that come out from the Stats Canada, but they're fixed tables. So for example, if I want to know about seniors who are immigrants, I might be able to find that, or seniors who are Indigenous, I could find that, or seniors who are visible minorities, but I couldn't break that visible minority group down to who's been in Canada for a long time. So it's pretty exciting to be able to begin working with disaggregated data. So some of the data sets available at the Research Data Center are, of course, census data, Aboriginal People Survey, Canadian housing surveys, the landed immigrant database, general social surveys, and their topics lately have been safety, family, and volunteering, the Canadian Community Health Survey, the Canadian, and it includes a survey on seniors, Canadian health measures, and then survey on children and youth. Those are some of the data sets we could see ourselves using. And all of these data sets you can parse out by age as well. So any of them could be, you could look at seniors data. So, and a thank you to Sheila. She's been working on this application with me and advising me, so that's been great. So some of the data themes, there's demographics, of course, family, daily living, health, immigration, mobility, labor market, income, dwellings, economic hardship, crime and safety, civic engagement, volunteering, and giving. So those are some of the themes that we would cover. And then we can obviously look at all those through specific lenses if we want to look at, you know, advanced age, or if people have just moved to Edmonton, or if they're immigrants or newcomers, those kinds of things. So this data will inform our mapping, and it will also inform looking at who are the seniors most in need and where do they live. Now, I'm going to put a plug in for those of you that have not worked with the M.A.P.S interactive maps. And Rosalie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's the session is set up for December 13th that will teach you how to use our interactive maps. They are layered on top of each other. You can toggle back and forth. You can put layers on the maps. And so, for example, if you wanted to see where in Edmonton are the most seniors who live in poverty and live alone, you would be able to find that from the map. All of the maps are done in numbers and proportions. And the reason for that is you might find that the highest proportion of seniors in poverty is in a certain neighborhood, but the number is quite low. And so it's always important that you know the proportion and the number. So yeah, I think if you're interested in some of this, December 14th would be a good time for you to have a look at the interactive mapping.
And how would we find that? What, like, is it a Zoom session, or Marlene?
Yes, it will be a Zoom session, Mary.
Oh,
Sure,
that's
the link.
fantastic.
So would Rosalie, excuse me, would Rosalie be the individual to contact for if you wanted to participate in that?
Yes,
Yes, please.
she's setting it up.
Yeah,
Yes.
so,
We'll
so that's great. Any questions of Marlene?
No, I put my comment in the chat. I can't believe that that we're going to get this access to that kind of data. I think that's brilliant, Marlene, and thanks so much.
And if I've understood correctly, as we look at the work for home supports, we look at the work Marlene's doing, we're beginning to get more information on older adults themselves. And if we look at the survey that you're all encouraged to fill in around organizational capacity that Karen mentioned, we're beginning to develop current understanding around capacity. So the two together, I think, are quite powerful. So any other questions of our presenters? So we can definitely see that the network is in action from all this activity. And now we wanted to turn our attention to the network and development. And so I know several individuals from the Interim Collective Leadership Group are on the call. I'm going to be bold enough to give a quick overview of the work to date. And then I would ask any of those individuals please to add to it. So again, just because some of us come and go on this call, we're not always the same people. I will just remind everyone that in July, the Interim Collective Leadership Group was formed. This is a group of community volunteers, a diverse group that brings a lot of skill together. And their primary function is to support this network develop and evolve. So to become stronger, to imagine its future state. And so they've been doing this work primarily since September. They've had a retreat and they meet every 2 weeks. And so in the last, since September, what they have been doing is developing a foundation for themselves in terms of working together effectively. And secondly, really looking at what is the next step for conversation or engagement about the network and its development. And so they are developing an engagement strategy, and that work is well underway. I think it would be completed by December, and then you will hear of how the Interim Collective Leadership Group will reach out to you and ask for your opinions on how we move the network forward. So that's really in a nutshell. I'm probably not doing the work justice, but I don't know if anyone else who's on the Interim Collective Leadership Group wants to make a comment or an observation.
And I just wanted to say that we certainly recognise that the Stewardship Roundtable has been a network and a very productive network for some time, and that this is more about a transition than a development, and that there's been a lot of work done in asking the Stewardship Roundtable about needs and about issues and gaps, and so that we will recognise that as we move forward as well.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Jan, because really it's not to reinvent the wheel. It's to, I don't know if that image is going to work for us, but to make things more fulsome, connect more people, build out the momentum already created. Any other member from the group that wishes to make a comment or an observation about their work?
Well, I'm just comment about developmental evaluation. It's a new concept to me, and I'm enjoying learning about it. And I think it's a key element to moving forward. So learning curves.
I think that's the case.
I wanted to make a comment. Well, not a comment, just a question to the other members there. Like, when you're promoting your programs and so forth, like, what are the strategies that works best for you to like reach your target audience?
I think that is the question that is now underway in terms of the work that the group is doing. So to begin to identify, we have talked at this meeting about participation and people's capacity. So I think this is really, you put your finger on the pulse of one of the challenges of the work. So I know that's not quite an answer. I know that isn't an answer. I don't know if anyone else wants to respond, but I do think that's part of the sort of the strategic thinking that's well underway, and the answer to that question, I'm hoping you will see in January.
Okay, thank you. I look forward to that.
Any other comments about the work of the Interim Collective Leadership Group? So Miriam, I have not seen your face on my screen, but I know you are here. Are you?
I am here.
Wonderful. So the next on our agenda, Miriam works for the age. If I don't do this justice again, I'll ask you to help me. But Miriam works for the Healthy Aging Group, provincial group, as she is part of the backbone within the United Way Calgary, and she's going to share some information with us about the nonprofit Pulse Check.
Yes, thank you so much, Anne. I really appreciate the invitation to chat with everyone today. As Anne mentioned, my name is Miriam. I am the project manager for Healthy Aging Alberta. I believe Angelica is going to share the PowerPoint for me. Thank you so much, Angelica. I appreciate it. Sorry, today I'm in the office because I have a new staff starting, and I realize that without the comfort of my two screens, it's a little bit tricky to share. So thanks, Angelica, for that. I just wanted to give a quick little overview just before we get started chatting about the ABNN data from the pulse check that was conducted in December of 2020. So ABNN was kind enough to share with us their raw data from that pulse check, and we were able to just filter it out for organizations that serve seniors. So that is the data that we're going to share with you today. But just before we get going on that, I just wanted to speak really quickly about Healthy Aging Alberta. Just for those of you who might not be super familiar with it, Healthy Aging Alberta is a new name that we have been using for the work of coordinating a community-based senior serving sector in the province. So again, just a few words on that, if that's okay. So Healthy Aging Alberta is a by community for community provincial initiative that brings together a rich network of community-based organizations, like many of you from across the province, that are united by the vision of making Alberta one of the best places in the world to grow older. So it focuses on the development of a coordinated community-based senior serving sector that is respected and integrated with the broader seniors system of care, and can empower and inspire every senior to age how they choose, ultimately improving health and social outcomes for older adults. So as we seek to develop this coordinated sector, we'd like to bring together community-based organizations around a common framework for action that focuses on identifying and addressing priority areas related to healthy aging in community. The initiative seeks to create a provincial network of organizations that can advocate for healthy aging at a provincial level, share knowledge, and create functional relationships with one another and allies such as health, the health sector, and other sectors. So I will add some information just after my presentation, just on where you can learn more about the initiative, as well as contact us if you have any questions. So thank you for allowing me to do that just to start. So I will jump in to the ABNN data and the third pulse check. So ABNN had conducted 3 since the start of the pandemic, and this is the latest data that we have. So the organizations that were focused on seniors were a total of 187. And so we did a high-level analysis of that data and just pulled out some of the insights that we thought would be relevant at this point. I heard as I was coming in that someone, I believe Karen McDonald, had already mentioned the survey. So we are conducting a survey to try and many of the questions in that survey are based on the questions within the ABNN Pulse Check, just to try and get an updated picture of where the sector is at the moment. So these 187 organizations from this Pulse Check were out of the 500 plus organizations that responded in total to the ABNN Pulse Check. So here are some high-level insights from that data. So as you can see, apologies. I'm reading my notes, and so I forgot to ask for the slides to change. I'm sorry about that. So please, if we can move forward, thank you. That's perfect. So the top organizational challenges. So there was a question in the survey just around the top organizational challenges that organizations are seeing. So as you can see, staff mental health was right up there, along with challenges accessing technology for staff, volunteers, and our clients, challenges enforcing the guidelines for compliance, so as you can see, masking and so on, and challenges understanding Alberta Health operating guidelines. So those were the top pieces. If you wouldn't mind, Andrew, just clicking next, thank you. So you can see that there are some additional challenges, and we'll be happy to share these slides just after, so that you have this data available to you. But as you can see, there are some additional challenges there that were identified. And Angie, could you click one more, please? Thank you. So the other question was around top operational needs to effectively continue to deliver on the organizational mission. So as you can see, funding for core operations was the main thing, funding for program modifications that were necessary to continue to deliver programming. Flexibility with current funding agreements was also identified by most organizations. Support for virtual programming, opportunities to create partnerships within the sector, more staff, and support understanding the changing rules. So again, there were a lot more operational needs that were identified, and happy, Angie, thank you so much. They were that were identified here, and again, happy to share this slide. We'll walk you through the whole thing, but a significant number of needs identified to be able to continue to deliver on the mission of the organization in the next 12 months. Thank you. So this slide shows some of the pieces that organizations identified as things that they would need to continue to advocate for themselves. And I'm sorry, the font is a little small. And as I mentioned, I'll be happy to share these slides with you. So data on the economic impact on the nonprofit sector was the main thing that was identified. Data on the social impact of COVID-19 on the nonprofit sector. Data on the social impact of the nonprofit sector on Albertans, and data on the economic impact of COVID-19 on the nonprofit sector, as well as opportunities to develop advocacy, coordinated advocacy strategies. So some organizations identified that, as well as resources to share data. So just the ability to kind of share the data that is available, and leadership from umbrella organizations. So again, speaking to that need for coordinated action within sectors. Thank you. If we can move to the next slide. Thank you very much. So this slide just speaks to the complexity of needs and delivery. So as we can see here on the right, that the complexity of client needs has increased, and as a response, the complexity of delivery, my apologies, has also increased. Demand and capacity for nonprofit services. On the right, we can see that there has been an overall decrease in capacity, while demand has actually increased. Thank you. So here, as we can see, the question, how has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted your organization's different sources of funding? So this, within this question, as you can see, there has been a significant decrease decrease reported by most organizations around their funding. And as I mentioned in the survey that we're conducting now, we are seeing a similar trend in terms of concerns around decreased funding, but it is very clear that it has continued to be a problem since December of last year. Now, this slide might be one that you might want to take some time to reflect on, but just at a high level, you can see, where there's been significant decrease or decrease. So that earned revenue piece has definitely been the one that has been impacted the most, along with the sources of funding from individual donations as well as corporate donations have seen the biggest impact. The most stability has been obviously with the municipal governments and the foundation and other government sources, as well as United Way as sources of funding. There has clearly very few folks have actually seen an increase in funding, with federal funding kind of being the biggest source of increased funding. But yeah, you'll have this data just to look at more closely at your convenience afterwards. Thank you. So this question was just around how folks have adjusted their offerings in terms of programming. So as you can see, the majority of people have changed their offerings to meet client needs, they've changed their offerings and added new offerings to meet client needs. Changes have been made to offerings due to lack of capacity and resources as well. So that is also quite a few organizations reported that. They've had to remove offerings due to the lack of ability to continue to deliver those offerings, or they've removed offerings because of changes in client needs as well. And so this slide just speaks to access to funding from federal resources compared to provincial resources. So as you can see, folks for the most part were neutral on this point, but there was some agreement that there is equitable access, and it's pretty split in terms of the responses. But for the most part, some folks did agree that the equitable access compared to from urban sources compared to rural sources, there is a variation there. So this question was around if organizations would be able to continue to sustain their programming, and how long they feel that they will be able to continue to sustain this programming. So as you can see, most organizations indicated that they feel that they would be able to sustain for more than a year, but there is a significant number that felt that they would be able to sustain for shorter periods of time. In particular, that 7 to 12 month, and some organizations were just not sure about the situation. So this really shows just the precarious situation that organizations find themselves in. And that is just a quick snapshot of that data. Again, happy to share that information. As we mentioned, there is a survey that is based on the ABNN questions with some additional questions that has been circulating. We have just under 100 responses at this point. So we were hoping to reach that 150 mark just to be able to get a decent picture and to be able to compare to some of this data that was collected about a year ago. So if you've participated, if you've come across the survey, you've participated, we appreciate it. If not, I'll put the link just in the chat, and we hope that some of you would be able to share some of your experiences and information. I'm also happy to put my contact in the chat if you would like to send the survey out to your networks. We're happy to provide just some templated messaging around that piece. And that is all that I have to share for the moment. So if anyone has any questions or anything that I can respond to right now, I would be happy to do it. And again, thank you again for this opportunity.
Miriam, I just see a question in the chat from Paul.
Yeah.
About the decrease of source of funding, any indication of range of decrease by percentage? For example, significant decrease means 50% less or more?
I'll have to go back to the ABNN report and check on that one for you. So I'm happy to get back to you. I saw that Karen Link might be on the call. So I don't know if Karen, you might be able to actually speak to this question.
Yeah, I have to look as well. So I'm happy to get back to you. I was thinking about that when you said that. I'm like, but I do need to check. Would you like me to get back to you about that directly?
Sure, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Will do, Paul.
Karen, you can share that with us and we'll share it with everybody. That would be awesome.
I can include that in just the notes under that that slide for folks. So we will find that information and include that in there. So thank you for that question.
So any questions or observations about this information? I don't see anything in the chat, and
I have a comment, Anne. Just a comment.
Yeah.
As a representative of the leadership group, I was thinking that we could really use the information, the data on these slides for some of the strategic planning that we'll be talking about. So thank you very much for the slides. It would be much appreciated.
Thank you, Mary. And sorry if I didn't make it clear, for the new survey that we're conducting, obviously that information will be circulated. It will be shared through the newsletter, the Core Alberta newsletter, and it will make its way to a number of you. So hopefully that data will also be useful. And I'm just noting a comment from Jody in the chat just around Edmonton organizations that have contact in rural areas or potentially northern community-based senior serving organizations. And if folks do have some connections there and are able to share the survey, that might give us some indication of the situation in those areas. One of the questions I didn't share that data from the ABNN survey, but one of the questions is around regions. So we will be able to share just some qualified data in terms of where in the province certain trends are being seen.
Great, thanks, Miriam. And so again, I think the key issue here is really, if I've understood, the survey will close Friday. So if people can do their best to really connect with people they know who would be interested in providing input, that would be wonderful.
Great.
So if there, sorry, Miriam, were you going to?
I was just going to say thank you.
So now we're moving to our village news portion of our agenda, and this is just an opportunity for everyone gathered here. I know we've already identified several immediate things or events that are occurring, and they're in the chat. But if others had something about something they had a question or wanted help with, an event that they wanted to share, or if there's some project information they want to share. So we'll just open the floor and people can participate.
Is it okay if I go ahead?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Dorothy.
hi, it's Dorothy, and I have a call out to everyone. We are looking for 2 other short stories to add to our repertoire that we're going to offer. And this actually stems from the survey from the last session that we did, where we were looking to add some diversity. So we have 3 Christmas-based stories, and we'd like to add that to that. 2 more stories, either to do with winter or New Year or some other tradition around this time of year to expand it. So if anyone knows any like an Indigenous storyteller who might have something that they could share, or an immigrant from stories from other countries or that type of thing, that if you could share us the link, that would be great to that person. So we're looking to get that settled sooner versus later. So you can just, I'll put my email in the chat, or you can reach Caroline G or myself. Thanks.
So this is connected to the age-friendly initiative.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, I'm the co-chair of the Age-Friendly Hub. So
excellent. Other village news, information, questions, or support you're looking for?
Caroline probably knows more about this than I do, but Caroline was connected with some researchers at the U of A who want to do some focus groups with seniors on access to transportation and transit and things like that. So if you know any seniors that might be interested, feel free to contact Caroline or myself, and we can put you in touch with those people.
Great, thank you.
I should probably intervene just to introduce Angelica to everybody. You may not recognize, but Angelica Matson has been hired by the Seniors Coordinating Council as our strategic specialist. And she's been with us now for maybe 3 weeks, Angelica. So she's hit the ground running, and I'm sure you'll be getting to know her more as our network continues to develop. So welcome, Angelica, and I'm glad that you're able to kind of make some connections with names and faces, because we've been talking a lot about how great this group is. So I'm sure Angelica is witnessing all the excellent collaborating that's happening. So thank you.
I'm just trying to see if I can see any hands or anything in the chat that people wanted to share.
Maybe I'll put in one plug. I know tonight we are going to be down in Laurier Park in Edmonton, and it's part of ESCC, an age-friendly seasonal event. And if you haven't registered to come down, we have some horses doing a wagon or sleigh ride. We're not sure which is coming, the wagon or the sleigh, and we'll have hot dogs and s'mores and things like that. So if you're interested in coming, just let us know. I think we've got lots of supplies, and the weather looks pretty good. So hope you can join us. I see Debbie Clark has her hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to share with the group. I'm with the Edmonton Community Adult Learning Association, and we receive funding from Advanced Education, the Adult Foundational Learning Unit, to fund English language classes, literacy classes, basic digital skill classes, and we have a very high percentage of seniors who attend. They're part-time, they're informal, and I'll put the link to our website in the chat box. We have a searchable learning opportunities directory. So I know some of you have talked about some system navigation challenges, and a lot of people still don't know what we fund and what's available for seniors. So I'll include that in the chat. But also our call for applications is opening on Friday, and it's available to nonprofit organizations and post-secondary institutions to apply for funding for a 2-year term. And it's specifically to work with some of the most vulnerable seniors and Edmontonians. So, think about those types of individuals if you're looking at applying for funding, and that opens on Friday.
Great, thank you very much. Anything else individuals wish to share? Lots of information today. So then I will, excuse me, I will move then to just note the next meeting will be in February the 23rd. As I said at the beginning, we really want that network in action piece to profile collaborative activity that's being undertaken. So if you do have something you want to share with the group, please let Sheila know. And again, we're really hoping, I know there's been a call out in the past to this group that if you wish to shape this agenda, then just connect with Sheila and the council, because we want the network gathering to be as meaningful to all of you as possible. So I'll just flag that next date, and we anticipate at that time you'll hear more about the conversations that the Interim Collective Leadership Group is going to champion to support further development of the network. So is there any closing comments, or we've covered our agenda sufficiently?
My closing comment is that I invite you all to support the Northwest Family Caregiver Wellness Workshops. Talk about it with your members, share it far and wide, because it's a great workshop that is very good for the community. And we're currently working on expanding it. And, you know, we just want the support of the community in like getting this these courses out there to the people.
And are you able, Danny, to put something in the chat just so people will know how to connect with you?
Oh, yes, for sure. I will do that right now.
Perfect. Thank you. Anything else related to our agenda? So we are moving into the festive seasons, and we won't see each other again potentially unless you're going down to have a celebration with the council this evening. So best wishes to all. Appreciate you all connecting, and I believe this would be the conclusion of our meeting. Thanks everyone for participating.